Hello, everyone, and welcome back to our final episode of the 2020 Junior Gold Arsenal Building Series. It's Daniel, and I'm here again with Alek, my man. How's it going today?
It's a beautiful day in Texas.
That it is. While we're recording this, bowling alley is still closed. That's a boo. But we are looking forward to them opening back up so that we can get back, practice, and hit the ground running. Right, Alek?
That's right. It's time to get back on that grind.
Yes, I would agree completely. I can't wait for that grind. Let's talk today about our main topic, and that is building our complete arsenal for Junior Gold. A lot of people looking forward to this episode. Did one last year like this, so now we're doing the 2020 version. So, Alek, let's hear your thoughts on, just a complete arsenal as a whole. Like, what do you think that would consist of, and how do you kind of define that?
Yeah, to me, I think a general arsenal is around 6 bowling balls plus or minus one. I think having a complete arsenal is when you can walk into a bowling center, not know what you're bowling on, and feel confident that you can score on anything.
I completely agree. In college, a lot for tier ones and for basically any tournament, we take 5 balls. Because we're limited in college at tier ones to 5 balls. And Junior Gold is a 5-ball limit, of course, which a lot of people disagree with because, like Alex said, a lot of times 6-ball 6-ball arsenals are really, the most well-rounded thing you can have. So it definitely adds a little bit of a layer of difficulty at Junior Gold regarding that. But
One more thing about the 6-ball arsenal that I feel is that people carry around 2 3-ball totes. We don't carry around a 3-ball tote and a 2-ball tote. At least for me, when I go to league, I take 2 3-ball totes.
As for kind of choosing each ball out, like how do you do this? We were just talking a minute ago. Like there's 5 quadrillion bowling balls on the market. You could sit here and look at a list all you want and look at numbers, but how do you actually go about saying like I need that ball? Like how do you do that for you, Alek?
So it's first off looking at your current arsenal, recognizing what holes you may have, if there are holes, or maybe there isn't necessarily a hole, but you have something that's not performing well, or is starting to get old, or just maybe the layout doesn't work on it. So I personally recommend plugging balls and trying different layouts if that's the case before you just abandon it and get a new ball. So it's first self-analyzing. What do I have and what do I struggle on? So let's say you struggle on heavy volume patterns. You're probably going to be looking at an ASIM with a really strong cover for the most part. So in that case, you're looking at like a Jackal Ghost or a UFO or a 900 volatility. But it really depends person to person, game to game, and what they struggle with.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And something that you spoke on too, like if something's getting really old, like I don't know if you have a 1970s ultra angle sitting around from AMF, like I do in a box in the other room, and it's just not working anymore. And you're like, where the heck is my ball reaction at? Well, you can always fill that gap with a new bowling ball. And I love saying that because I'm a pro shop guy and I like to sell things. So, which by the way, support your local pro shops. Yay, that's a good plug.
New ball carry, it's real.
Yes, oh man, the new ball carry is just, oh man, don't even get me started. It's too good. It's too good. It's like cheating.
Yeah, essentially, we should just ban new balls.
Just totally, yes. Let's putting down the hammer. So for me, personally, whenever I sit down and I look at, I can look at core numbers. I can look at, cover stock analytics and polymers. I can look at all that stuff, for 10 days straight and still not know what that I need to fill this gap. So for me personally, what I'll do is I'll say, hey, let's look at a ball review, or hey, let's think about how this ball is going to roll. Let's watch somebody else throw it. Or, if it's like brand new, nobody's thrown it yet, then I'll say, you know what the heck, let's fork out some cash and let's drill a bowling ball. And I'll pull one off the rack and I'll say, hey, let's try it. And you know what? If it rolls well, then it rolls well. And I like to say that And I know my coach, Brian Rickert, is going to hate me so much for saying that because he's a very much numbers guy and really does not like it when I just use my examples of how I actually build arsenals, and that's, hey, let me throw that ball first. And so, he doesn't like it when I say that, but that's kind of my mentality, and that's where we differ a lot. For me, something that I chose early on in my arsenal building is a newer ball in the market. It's from Brunswick, and it's the Phantom. They remade the vintage Phantom. And so kind of for my style, and it's a decently early rolling ball, as we talked about in the last episode. It's got a lot of surface out of the box on it. Mine is pinned down. And so, I did that so that I could get it a little further down the lane and kind of make it a little cleaner through the heads, even though it still has that surface that wants to read really early. So I think that it's a great benchmark piece for me that I can go up on, or I can go a ball down from as well. So what do you think, Alek? What's like that first ball that you would choose in your arsenal?
For me, I generally like, I probably am the opposite from a lot of people. I like to build top down, either bottom up or top down. In this case, we'll do top down. And this is from just a brand new arsenal, not having anything.
Mm-hmm.
So I would get that heavy oil ball. For me, with my style, I'd probably lean towards something like a Jackal Ghost, where it's proven, it's versatile. You can play straight with it. You can even open your angles up, which some super strong balls have trouble with. If I were a lower rev player, like when I was one-handed and was just a tilt spin machine, whatever you want to call it, I'd probably be looking at something like a 900 global volatility, where if you can't get that thing to hook in the front part of the lane, either it's burning up or something's terribly wrong with you.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to start. You prefer to start with that high tier ball and then kind of work your way down. Whereas me, I start with that benchmark and then kind of build around it. So that's a great way to kind of display the differences in how that we typically build arsenals. So like for me, the next ball is gonna be I'm gonna go with the ball up from my Phantom, and for me that's gonna be something that although it comes shiny out of the box, I'm also going to take the polish off, put like a 2000 grit on it, keep it at 2000, and have a little stronger layout on it. And for me, that's the Tactics Hybrid. So what I see out of this is asymmetrical, of course, has that same trusted Starship core as the Tactics that I love so much. So it's certainly it's for me a ball up, just one step up from that Phantom. So you're going to be going the opposite direction, though. You're going to take a step down from how that you talked about that Jackal Ghost. So kind of to walk us through that.
Yeah, so you could go with an asymmetric pearl or hybrid, something that's going to be cleaner and more poppy down lane. I don't think you necessarily have to go that way, because having an asymmetric core is just always going to make it earlier. And sometimes you get trapped where it's not clean enough to kick out that 10, where it just starts to hook a little too early or it's too much ball. I am still going to go with an asymmetric pearl here, but I think for some bowlers, it may be better just to go to something like a phase 3. But for me, and how I see ball motion, I would go with something like a Omega Crux, where it's going to be cleaner than the Ghost, but still smooth down lane. Maybe smooth's not the right word. It's going to be controllable down lane. It's still going to be punchy. It's still going to go quite a bit further, a couple feet, than the Jackal, especially depending on how I drill it. If one's with maybe a 4-inch pin versus a 5-inch pin. Another option, of course, would be a astrophysics or a nuclear cell, or even a Savage Life from Columbia 300. I think that ball is underrated.
Yeah, completely agree. That's a great way to talk about it. Definitely see some differences there. And as I went with something that comes out of the box shiny, that is asymmetric, I typically take the polish off of that, and I think that it's a really good way to go either way. If you're seeing this and you're like, man, I don't know what that ball down from my highest level of ball, my earliest ball would be, then definitely a way to go is to kind of look at and compare these things. Alec being two-handed, has a little bit of a higher rev rate than me. You know, he's in that, you know, 440 tier, 425, 430, somewhere in there.
We'll go with
Yeah.
430.
Okay, 430, and I'm right at, you know, 380, 390-ish, somewhere in between 380, 390, which is a little higher than years in the past. I'm happy about that. But yes, I know. But I definitely think that it's great to kind of hear these options to compare. So for me, the next ball that I would choose is going to be a ball down from my Phantom. So 2 steps down from the Tactics Hybrid, 1 from the Phantom. And that ball is going to be the Hammer Onyx Vibe. So what did I see out of this ball? Mine that I have had for a couple of years now is pinned down. Has the same layout as my Phantom, but one minor difference is it does still have a weight hole, which I'm sure I'll end up plugging by the end of the summer, because August 1st, 2020, we're required to have weight holes plugged. So don't forget that, everybody out there, even though you're in quarantine, rules not changing. So, something I see out of the Onyx Vibe is, especially in college, I mean, I use this ball quite a lot in college, where if I need to move left and it's broken down and there is just like a wall of friction to the right, I just move left and throw this straight into the friction and I watch it hockey stick back. You know, I don't love the hockey stick motion, but if I need a ball that does it and that's what's going to work, then this is the go-to ball, which would be the Hammer Onyx Vibe. What are you thinking as far as your next slot, which would be one step down from something like an Omega Crux for you?
This is going to be that bread and butter ball. This is going to be the ball you're going to throw most of the time. So it's going to be that strong, symmetric, solid, or early hybrid, depending on the brand.
Mm-hmm.
Every brand nowadays has one. But I think the staple of that, the face of it, is either a Rotogrip Idol or a Storm Phase 2. But every brand has one. They're all going to be great. I know the Deviate Verge was really good. The Motive Rogue Assassin is kind of sneaky. Don't see it a lot, but I hear really good things about it. And then Ebonite has the Omni, which I think is, I believe off the top of my head, it is technically asymmetric. But it still fits in that category. And honestly, you could even, in some cases, use it as a ball down. Like if I were to start with that big asymmetric solid, but I don't want something that's going to be clean like a Omega Crux, but it still needs to have teeth and not be as early, a Phase 2 is perfect for that. I think that's why the Phase 2 gets used so much, is it can be used on fresh. It can be used as that first ball, that ball down. It can do pretty much anything you want.
Yes, and like you spoke about the Ebonite Omni, it has an RG of 2501, a differential of 050, and it does have a mass bias of 013. So it is asymmetric. And, definitely something that I still would compare in that same tier as the Storm Phase 2. You know, Storm Phase 2 is going to be symmetric and quite a little bit cleaner.
One thing I would like to mention real quick is when you're building an arsenal, I don't believe there's anything wrong with going brand specific. So like an example would be Rotogrip and Storm, and I guess now the Fantastic Seven, whatever you want to call them. I don't want to say everyone by name. I don't think there's anything wrong with that, because the chemicals they're using are all going to be the same. And although there are different people designing them, they work in the same building, and I'm sure they communicate with each other on what works with each other. But at the same time, I think for the majority of bowlers, if you're not on a contract, which 99 point something % of us aren't, I think most of the time you're going to be better off mixing and matching and saying, okay, this kind of core works for me. And while this brand has this kind of core in a really good solid that I like, they don't have it in a pearl that I like. Or maybe they do, but it's too strong or too weak. But another brand has a similar core that fits that slot. So unless you're on a staffer or just for some reason want to act like a staffer, I think most of the time having different brands that fit what you like is going to be best for your game and your arsenal than just saying, I have to get that brand.
Now to my favorite part of the arsenal building. For me, it comes down to two very similar options. In fact, some might say the same option with different layouts for my arsenal, and that happens to be Purple Hammer urethane. Now, something cool that I will talk about too at the same time, although we have our standard Purple Hammer, of course, which I mean is like the dream ball. You know, it's probably one of the best, most sold balls in the world within the last decade. You know, it's got an RG of 265 and a differential of 015, and you know, symmetric, of course, and certainly a staple in anyone's bag. I mean, from anyone, from lefties to righties, two-handed righties to two-handed lefties, everyone loves this ball. But another ball that has more recently come out that has had a lot of talk about it in comparison to the Purple Hammer is the U Motion from Brunswick. You know, it came out relatively soon after they acquired the EVI brands. They wanted to mess around with a purple urethane and kind of mess with the mixes, and I've had a chance to throw this ball, and I really, really like it. You know, I will say that the Purple Hammers always will have a special place in my heart, but the U-Motion is definitely something that is up there that I really, really enjoy throwing.
I hope to throw the U-Motion soon. That ball I think has a chance to be really good. I'm not sure if he'll reach that Purple Hammer heights. I mean, I think expecting it to is just setting yourself up for disappointment.
Yeah.
I think that's unrealistic for any ball by any manufacturer. But just looking at the video I've seen, the response I've seen from people who have thrown it, it's got to be the closest thing to a Purple Hammer on the market right now. So if Brunswick is unable to recreate that Purple Hammer in now the factories in Mexico, I think the U-Motion is going to be the closest thing any company is going to be able to make for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Moving on to my next piece in the arsenal, I would personally go with the IQ Tour. I can throw that ball on anything. I can throw it when it's fresh as long as there's not a giant puddle. And if there was a puddle, once there's some friction, it's responsive enough where it can bounce off of it, but not uncontrollably. So for me personally, I would put an IQ Tour there.
You know, for me, last year, I took both of my Purple Hammers. I have one with a 5-inch pin to PAP layout and a 4-inch pin to PAP layout. And for those, I took both to Junior Gold, and I threw them both quite a lot. Had a lot of success throwing both, and I really enjoyed that. So, you know, Alek, what do you think? Do you find urethane in your arsenal, or is that something that you try to avoid? Or
Absolutely. I throw urethane on pretty much everything, and if it wasn't for respect to my teammates, I would throw it on house shots. For me, it's controllable. The carry's good. I mean, what's not to like? If I didn't know what the pattern is, I'd probably take that ball because at a worst case scenario, there's always 360.
So there's one last thing that I wanted to ask you. I didn't tell you that I was going to do this before we started, so I can see that you're quite curious. So I'm gonna give you 10 seconds, okay? And you have to tell me one ball that if you had to get rid of all your bowling balls except for one, and you had to bowl in a tournament on the hardest pattern that you've ever seen in your life, all right, then what ball would you throw? I'm going to give you 10 seconds. All right, you ready? All right.
I'm taking a Storm IQ Tour.
Storm IQ Tour. Didn't even take 2 seconds. I'll tell everyone that's probably wondering if I'm going to answer the same question, Purple Hammer, no doubt. But anyways, that kind of just concludes the Junior Gold Arsenal Building Series for 2020. You know, I'm really thankful to Alek for joining me for these last 2 episodes. So thank you, Alek.
Well, thank you for having me. This was a great time.
Yes, no problem at all. I'm glad that you enjoyed it. I certainly did. For everybody watching out there, I want to say once again, although I said this at the beginning of episode 1, I am very sorry that Junior Gold got canceled. I was looking forward to going. Alek was as well, I know, and I'm just, it's, you know, it hurts my heart, but at the same time, I know I don't get to choose.
You know, it's better to stop bowling for right now so we can bowl in the future with all of our friends, hopefully, instead of just some of them. But tough times pass, tough people last. Bowling and just life in general will be back.
Couldn't have said it better myself. So thanks again, Alec, and I hope everybody stays blessed out there, has a good time with what's going on, and stays safe. Thank you, everyone, for tuning in to all 5 episodes. And if you have missed any, be sure to check them out. They'll be on my channel, of course. And have a great summer, everyone. See you later.
See ya!